Good morning. Welcome in. The Out of Bounds Show. ESPN 105.9 The Zone. If you need cataract surgery, you want to call Eye Care Professionals and Dr. Kirk Jeffries today. If you need cataract surgery, Eye Care Professionals, Dr. Kirk Jeffries. Also, if you're playing ball or your son or daughter's playing softball, baseball, tennis, and all the sports where you have to see and see well at a high level. Eye Care Professionals, Dr. Kirk Jeffries. That eyesight could be the difference, right? Our next guest knows all about that. He got up to AAA San Francisco Giants. Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus, NFL Insider. The draft is right around the corner. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Steve Palazzolo, do you have good eyesight?
I used to have good eyesight. I think it's getting a little bit worse with age here. But my high school coach used to get us tested every year, and there was always one person that needed glasses. Like we had a kid who could not hit the ball until he got glasses, and it completely changed. Hit like 350 his senior year. So it's important.
God, that's so cool. It is important, man. If I said, actually, you finish this sentence for me. How many wide receivers are in this draft that are even going all the way to the 30, 31st, 32nd pick? How many wide receivers are in this draft that are first round worthy? I don't mean they have to be the top two dudes, by the way, three or four dudes. I'm talking about even on the back end that can play and produce in year one, Steve Palazzolo.
I think there's probably 6, 7, 8 maybe that are all rumored to at least go by the back end of the first round, and I think that's a fair number. Some of them will fall to the second round, obviously, and there'll be, some teams are going to have to make some decisions because it's such a deep wide receiver class. But in the top 4 with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze, we know they'll go probably top 10. I think Brian Thomas Jr. might squeeze into the top 15 or 20 from LSU, and then after that, I think there's a lot of different opinions on guys like A.D. Mitchell from Texas, Troy Franklin from Oregon, Ladd McConkey from Georgia. There's a Keon Coleman from Florida State. I've even seen Washington's Jalen Polk in Peter Schrager's first round mock. So there's probably 15 receivers that have been mocked in a first round from someone. So I think at the end of the day, you get probably 5 or 6. And then a whole bunch at the top end of round 2 who are really good players.
Okay, what number would not surprise you, Steve, at the end of round 2, as far as wide receivers taken in the NFL draft in a week and a half or so?
Oh, I think we're 13, 14, 15. If we had that many receivers, especially, I think if you look historically, it's a lot easier to get second round receivers. That's where A.J. Brown and Deebo Samuel, and I think the NFL looks at those trends and looks at the depth. And I think what we're going to see is we'll see the top end guys go. We'll see a sprinkling of late first round receivers, and I really think there'll be a second round run of receivers, in part because it's deep, and then in part because that's the historical trend. I think the NFL's using data more than ever, and they'll say second round's a great place to get receivers, so let's go do that. So I think we'll see that 15 range guys off the board after round 2.
Which guy, because these are Mississippi guys, which guy should have been a top 10 pick or top 15 pick more? Chris Jones from the Chiefs at the Chiefs or A.J. Brown with the Eagles? Can't believe both of them went in the second round.
I know. I'd say Chris Jones. We had him as a top 10 player in that draft. I thought it was clear as day. The knocks on Chris Jones was, he took plays off and he didn't play hard enough. And it's like, well, that's what the PFF metrics and the data really help sort out, because if he has a great PFF grade, which he did, it'll quantify that. If he takes plays off and doesn't make plays, it'll show up in the grade, and it didn't, right? He was a dominant player with the size, movement skills to be a dominant player, and obviously that's panned out. I loved A.J. Brown. I kind of got it, slot player, and he didn't do a whole bunch of stuff that projected. He was just a freak. But I think Chris Jones clearly should have been a top 10 player.
Would you take Deebo Samuel or A.J. Brown today?
Oh, I'd take A.J. Brown. I think he's a better all-around receiver, force multiplier for whatever offense he's a part of. And with Debo, I love Debo. I think what makes him special, though, is the versatility, and you have to have him in an offense that's going to put him in space and let him create after the catch. You don't have to make him a running back. That's just an added perk. But I think A.J. Brown's just a better all-around and force multiplier for his offenses.
Okay. Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. Sounds like he's got one of his sidekicks with him, and they're chilling on a Thursday. It's ESPN 105.9 The Zone, and we're driven by your next Nissan Pathfinder at Cannon Nissan in Jackson. So now I'm hearing Jaden Daniels to the Commanders and Drake May will be drafted after Jaden Daniels. If the Patriots decide to stay at 3, who knows? You can tell me what you think. Maybe they move back, get some more assets, and move back up. But for our listeners, I want you to know that the Bears pick first, and we feel like, yes, that's Caleb Williams. And then at 2, there seems to be a little bit of a debate. Is there a debate for you, or do you think it's Drake May or Jaden Daniels?
I mean, I would go Drake May at 2 for the Commanders. It does sound like Jaden Daniels might be the guy there. I think Caleb Williams is clearly 1. I like May as the 2. I'm kind of surprised that people have soured on him as much as they have. If the Commanders go Daniels, I think New England should take Drake May. I would go there. And then, the rumors about J.J. McCarthy moving up, I'm a little surprised by that, but I kind of get it. I think they're real. And, every team's going to have a different quarterback board. So there'll be different answers in every draft room. So it depends on what conclusions they come to. And it does seem like 3 and 4, Drake May and J.J. McCarthy, there'll be some healthy debates as to who the guy is there.
Okay. So you've got Drake May ahead of Jaden Daniels, but is it by a whisker or is there a gap there?
I think it's by a whisker. I think you look at, Drake May is a redshirt sophomore, look, there's a history of NFL quarterbacks with experience, maybe playing a little bit better over time. That used to be the old adage for Bill Parcells, want to see 30 starts or whatever it might be. And things changed, a lot more underclassmen came out. But I look at Drake May as a 21-year-old, and what Jaden Daniels was doing at 21, leaving Arizona State, not really having a great career to that point, being a bit of a wild card going to LSU. And then Daniels developed, which was great. He's turned into this top end of the first round prospect. But I think Drake May has so much potential. The thing that people criticize him about is just missing some easy throws and some footwork issues, and I think those are all valid. But I'm like, yeah, give me the 21-year-old Drake May that already does special things, that you can clean up some of the easy stuff along the way because he's younger, right? He doesn't have the extra 2 years that Jaden Daniels or 3 years that Bo Nix has had. So that's why I'm in on May, because I think he'll be able to correct some of those things at the NFL level.
Okay. He is Steve Palazzolo, NFL Insider, PFF.com, Pro Football Focus. To say that they're all over the draft, all locked in, all ready to go, is an understatement. And our NFL coverage today is brought to you by an ice-cold Stella Artois later this afternoon. And you can smash some crawfish from mud bugs. We got to get Jackson, we got to get Steve Palazzolo some. That's Southern right there, baby. That's Sunbelt, Southern, crawfish, potatoes, sausage, corn, sunshine. Yeah. Oh, man. All right. Brock Bowers. I love this dude. So I just think, I can't wait to see what he is in the NFL. Are you super high on Bowers, tight end out of Georgia, or are you just kind of like, yeah, he's a really good prospect?
No, I'm very high on Brock Bowers. I was just watching him again last night, and everything is just so natural with him. Movement, the way he attacks the football in the air, his hands, unbelievable. I watch him and how many times Georgia would throw him, back shoulders and just throw it to him when he was covered. He's good at getting open. Obviously, he's shifty. He's a good route runner. Undersized for a tight end, helps him get open. But when he's not covered, he's still open. He can go up and get the ball. And I know a lot of people are mocking him to number 10 with the Jets. And I think that fit with Aaron Rodgers would just be outstanding. I think Rodgers would give him those opportunities, right? So I like Bowers. I think the only question was about his size. And then the other question is, again, I think the NFL looks at historical trends, and and I think more than ever they're going to lean into those trends that might affect the draft. And the recent trends with tight ends in the first round, especially in the top 10, they're not great. Kyle Pitts a couple of years ago, he had a 1,000-yard season, but hasn't produced like a number 4 overall pick, in part because of the offense. TJ Hawkinson a couple of years ago, he didn't really get it together until year 4 or 5 when the rookie contract's pretty much done. So those are the things I think the NFL is going to look at. But as far as evaluating the player, Brock Bowers is outstanding. He's good enough in the run game. You put him on the move. He can do what he needs to do. But he's a pass game weapon, and I think ultimately he ends up going in the top 10.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think the guys you referenced applies with him, even though
I agree. They're different. They're all different. They're all completely different.
And by the way, Steve Palazzolo, NFL Insider, Pro Football Focus. Let's go with Kyle Pitts here for just a second. With Kirk Cousins and a new staff and a new regime in Atlanta, don't you expect? I mean, I think the dude can ball and play. Don't you expect him to have at least maybe not a monster year, but a really good year, Steve P?
Yeah, I mean, I think the entire offense will have a good year.
Yeah.
My good friend Zach Robinson calling the plays there.
That's right.
And yeah, so I could talk to you about the Falcons all day this year. I think just all of the playmakers that they have. They brought in Darnell Mooney to be a deep threat to complement Drake London, and they'll just let Kyle Pitts go out and play football. And he's a mismatch creator. They'll work the middle of the field. You line him up outside, and he's like a big actual receiver that teams have to account for. So and then Bijan Robinson coming out of the backfield. I just think they have such good weapons. What they didn't do with Arthur Smith is lean into those weapons. They just didn't use them often enough, and then they just had poor quarterback play. So Kirk Cousins, Cousins does a good job of making sure that he's in a place that has good dudes to throw to. He's been picking his landing spot the last few times. There's a reason why he went to Atlanta, and so he's got dudes to throw to. And I do think Kyle Pitts will have a big season for the Falcons.
The text line started good and going with Brock Bowers and Aaron Rodgers. So let's touch on that again. So let's circle back. Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus, talking NFL, brought to you by Stella Artois. Okay. Aaron, I expect him to come back, be ready to go, have an unbelievable year. I still think he's got some juice in the tank. Be interested to see what you think. But Aaron Rodgers and Brock Bowers, to me, that could be legal. How do you see it?
Yeah, and it's complementing what else they have, right? I mean, Garrett Wilson on the outside. I think from training camp, it looks like Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson had good rapport. Why wouldn't they? They're both really good players. Bringing in Mike Williams on the outside, and then Bowers gets to be their slot and their move guy and their, the guy that if you only pay attention to those outside receivers, Bowers will make you pay. So I think the fit makes a lot of sense. I do think Aaron Rodgers has plenty left in the tank. He wasn't at his best the last time we saw him play in 2022, but still plenty good enough. And the only question is Rodgers. Part of the reason why the last season that he had in 22 it wasn't great is because Rodgers runs the offense and wants everybody to run it his way. And of course, at this point, as he's 40 years old, you got to run it his way. So that's the only thing is the learning curve. Yeah, things were different last year. Jordan Love was running the offense. Aaron Rodgers was running Aaron Rodgers' offense when he was there. So that's the only thing is the learning curve, right? If there's a knock on, do you want to bring Bowers in and have him become an instant playmaker? Will it actually take time to build that rapport with Rodgers, especially a position like tight end? That's really, it's an athletic position, but it's a field position too. You have to know when to find the soft spot in zones and lots of things in the middle of the field. So
right.
I think it's a great fit. It might take a little bit of time, but I do think Rodgers has plenty left in the tank. And if you're the Jets, you only have this 1 year or two with Aaron Rodgers. So you got to do everything you can to build around him, give him the weapons that he needs to make a playoff run.
Okay. Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Now, J.J. McCarthy. Now that we're close and you and your team at Pro Football Focus have been able to watch everything and talk about it and hear from other people in the league and in your building and so on, other buildings. Where do you stand with him as a prospect? And do you have a comp for him, Steve?
Oh man, I do not have a good JJ McCarthy comp. Sam, do you have a good JJ McCarthy comp? My podcast partner Sam's over here. I don't have anything as a comp goes. I think I'm as torn as everyone else. on J.J. McCarthy. I don't think the knocks are physical. I think he's very talented physically, runs really well, got a pretty good arm, throws well on the run. Kind of a one-speed thrower, could throw with more touch. Didn't show all the throws necessarily as far as touch throws go. And then that's the question, right? It's like a limited sample size in games that were very favorable from a game script, game flow standpoint. So every time I mention a negative, you're like, well, but there's a positive too, because when it was 3rd and long, J.J. McCarthy was outstanding, found ways to make plays and move the chain. So there's a lot to like. I think he's, like if I'm going to give Drake May the pass for being young, J.J. McCarthy has that in his bag as well. Being young, having time to develop, has continued to develop. I think he works through progressions pretty well, and he can zip it in there. So I think JJ is a developmental type of prospect, and probably deserving of going in the top 10. I don't know if I would be ready to put him over a Drake May or a Jaden Daniels yet at this point.
Okay, interesting. JJ McCarthy, quarterback out of Michigan. I can't wait to see what he is or isn't in the NFL. Of course, with the bus rate at 40%, we don't ever know what we're getting. And that's, I think, what makes it so much fun, the speculating and so on. All right, if Steve Palazzolo is a general manager, and which you should be, but if you are, and you've got a 2nd-round pick, and you didn't draft a QB in the 1st round, you got an offensive, a left tackle or an edge rusher because you had to have that. But now you're like, we got to get a quarterback. And you're the general manager of any of the franchises in the league. Do you pick Spencer Rattler if he's on the board?
Yeah, I'm good with. If are Michael Penix and Bo Nix still on the board, I'd probably take those guys higher.
Okay. So but they're off. They're off.
I like Spencer Rattler as a developmental guy. Again, I think
Bartu loves him.
Yeah. So Bartu, now his style is more. It's a lot of did you elevate the team type of stuff, right? That's what he leans on.
Absolutely, yeah. And he grades all these coordinators. He's a nerd. We call him that, right? And so he grades all these coordinators. And he's like, his coordinators, he went through multiple at South Carolina, were awful. And he measures that and South Carolina's talent against strength of schedule in the SEC. And he says that Spencer Rattler elevated his team and the people around him. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's something to it. I think from an on-field perspective, there's just inconsistency from an accuracy standpoint. One of my friends in the industry, offensive coach, not Zach, who I just mentioned, but he said, I really like him. I like him a lot, but I hate that he said he threw one of South Carolina's receivers into coverage. He's like, man, he's throwing dudes into coverage, getting them hit and all this stuff. So there's like these little parts of Rattler's game, accuracy-wise, and being a tick late, but he too has the tools, man. There's a reason why he was a top recruit. He was going to be the heir apparent at Oklahoma, the next guy. Good arm, throws well on the run. He's got some zip. Had to deal with a terrible offensive line at South Carolina. So yeah, I think there's a lot to like about Rattler, and I would absolutely like to get him in the building as a backup because just a couple of years ago, it looked like with the Kenny Pickett class, we didn't know who the top quarterback was going to be, and I believe Rattler technically was going to be eligible as a redshirt sophomore. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about him, maybe it's 21 or 22, whatever it was. He was going to be the top quarterback in the 22 class, going into that year. Because we didn't know. It was a weak class. It was like, oh, Spencer Rattler, he'll be the top guy. And then things didn't go well at Oklahoma, and he got benched for Caleb Williams and the whole thing. And so, there was a point where we thought he would be a top pick. So that's a guy you take a shot on.
All right, let's do rapid fire real quick. We've only got a couple of minutes. Rapid Fire brought to you by Stella Artois. We're visiting with Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. Okay, you're a general manager or owner, whatever. You can pick any wide receiver in the league, right? Not draft. I'm talking about anybody playing. Who's your number one pick at wide receiver if you get to pick anybody for this year?
Oh, man. Normally I go Tyreek Hill because I think he just makes such an impact. But I'll go Justin Jefferson. I think he's the best all-around receiver. Tyreek Hill's getting a tick older, a little bit more fragile, but I think those are the two best receivers in the league. A.J. Brown's close. Jamar Chase is close.
Hang on.
Who am I missing?
All right. So you got number 1 and 2, Tyreek Hill. All right. So Tyreek would be number 2. Who's number 3? If those two are off the board, you get to pick anybody.
I'd say Jamar Chase.
Okay. Who's number 4?
Probably A.J. Brown.
Okay. Who's number 5?
Who am I missing? Am I missing anybody egregious here? CD Lamb might be up in that boat right now.
That surprises me.
And become the all around player because he's turned into that do it all type of player.
Oh, he's fantastic. No doubt. I would like a little bit bigger target in the red zone, and so on. But I love that AJ.
Oh, I know, that's right. Everything's bad in Dallas except Dak.
Well,
I know what you're.
Have you seen what Steven and Jerry Jones are doing? It's an absolute travesty.
I know.
Okay.
Is Devontae Adams still up there?
Now, that's a great question. He's gotten lost out there. That's a great question. Does Devontae Adams have 1 or 2 more years of superb elite play? I wouldn't be surprised, Palzolo. Would you?
Not if they don't have a quarterback. But, yeah, I think he's still more than capable.
Yeah.
He was off a little bit the last couple of years with the QB situation, but I think he's still really good.
Man, the Raiders, where great players go to die. Wow. All right, dude. What's on tap this weekend? Y'all got soccer or baseball or what's happening with the kiddos?
Oh yeah, I got 2 Reds games.
Okay.
I'm taking the kids to the Reds game Friday, so I'm going to 2 games Friday and Saturday.
Nice.
But we also have T-ball, baseball, all sorts of fun stuff.
That's awesome, man.
Big weekend.
Yeah, I remember 8 a.m. T-ball games years ago.
Trying to get kids to. We got a baseball and T-ball game at the same time, so.
Hell, you were just glad if they had their shoes on. You didn't know which way you were going. Saturday morning, parents trying not to run over each other in the parking lot, mass chaos. Holy hell. All right, well, good luck with that. And I hope you have a great weekend, buddy. And I hope that I don't know what your schedule is next week, but you and I will communicate, and hopefully you can hop on, okay?
Yeah, sounds good. Appreciate it.
All right, bud. Steve Palazzolo on the Out of Bounds Show, brought to you by the amazing crawfish at Mudbugs. And also Stella Artois, which is a great beer. And it's been brewed for 600 years. Belgium, they kind of know what they're doing. Stella Artois. Official beer when we're talking NFL and NFL draft. And Dak and the Cowboys, Sean Payton and the Broncos, Derek Carr and the Saints. We're going to have a big, big third hour. Jack Bourgeois, I think, with Key City. Justin Stodgel with Martin's Market in Livingston.